Were you warmed up last night by watching the national championship game in college football as Georgia loses the hoodoo after 41 years and beats Alabama? They beat them twice this year, by the way, 2 out of 3 times, and the Bulldogs are your national champions, as Nick Saban will have to wait for that next national title, if indeed he gets one. 33-18, the final. I wonder if our next guest stayed up and watched all of that because he loves college football. And that's our good friend, Dr. John Braccio, drjohnb.com for all the podcasts, regional psychological services of East Lansing, Michigan, and on the other end of our line on this cold, wintry Tuesday. Good morning, Doc.
Well, good morning, and I did stay up, and I did watch the whole game, and I watched the post-game festivities, so it was really nice to see Georgia get that title. They really wanted it. You remember Herschel Walker went there, as you remember, many, many years ago. So,
what an amazing player he was. He was so good.
Yes, he was amazing. So this was a nice thing for Georgia. You know, Alabama's had so many of these, so to see Georgia come in and win one, I think it was a positive experience all the way around, and it was delightful. It was really nice to see. Good for Indianapolis, too. Good PR for the city.
Is probably my number one city for hosting anything in the country. I know Miami would disagree, where you spend a lot of time, and they say, hey, come on down, the sunshine. But I mean in terms of being centrally located where you can get a hotel, go to the game, go to the restaurant, enjoy a beverage. There's nothing like Indy. They do it up right. They just do. And you don't get creamed in the process. So I just think they're tremendous. And they put on a good show for the nation last night, as did Georgia, in getting that win. Now, we covered some ground there in terms of, looking at Herschel Walker in the memory bank. Let's talk about memory today, because I think as we get older, there's moments now I have I see a person's face, I'm like trying to connect a name, and they're right, you never forget a face, but the name, I'm like, and all of a sudden, boom, there it is. Well, I could worry about that moment all day. I just chalk it up to, well, it's just a moment, and it's no big deal. But people can get hung up on memory issues and maybe turn them into things that they're not, correct?
Well, that is true, Dave. We get a lot of calls, and just walking the road of life, people begin to wonder, is there something wrong with me? Okay. Well, often there's not. There can be, but let's talk on the note of persons that don't. So there are a few things I think more stressful to persons as they age is problems with their memory. They worry about this, okay? But while these are legitimate concerns, there's really too much stress put on persons who really have normal memory problems that occur as you get older. Okay, many of them take place with persons that have nothing to do with aging. And this is something I think important, too. There are people that have high levels of anxiety, sleep deprivation, depression, inappropriate use of prescription drugs, alcohol, substance abuse, and effects of a diagnosis such as ADHD. I think the important standard on your memory is if your problems are significant and they don't allow you to function effectively as a person in life and to take care of yourself, then there really is a problem. But the typical type of problems people have that are common, okay, and persons really don't even have to be that old. I think when people get much older, they begin to worry more. They would include like absent-mindedness. This is a very common thing. I think we all do this. You just don't pay attention. You walk in, you put your keys somewhere, but you didn't even think about it. It's not like you really forgot about it. You just weren't paying attention, so you then have to retrace what you were doing. You've got the thought word blocking. I think that's probably the most common. Like, I think most Spartan fans know that Kenneth Walker scored 5 touchdowns in the Michigan game, okay? But I think as the years go by,
I do. Right.
People may have to be thinking now, who was that? Kenneth Walker III. You may come within a minute or two, it may come back, and it may come back in a day or whatever it might be. But that's kind of a typical thing that can happen to people. Then fading memories. I mean, obviously the mind is a machine in a way that you can't have every bit of data and information there. So gradually, like we don't remember necessarily that 8 days ago, what were we doing at 10 in the morning, okay? So there are memories that kind of fade we really don't think about. And sometimes people worry, well, how come I can't remember that? I'd say, well, a lot of times it's really not that big of a thing. Then memory retrieval. There may be things we just don't remember that we think we ought to remember, like was there a game or we talked to somebody or we experienced something. And this happens too. You can run into somebody that you haven't seen for a long time, and you can be talking about a lot of different things, but there'll be something they bring up that you just don't really remember. And then I think general forgetfulness is another one that we just tend to forget, like to take your pills in the morning or to pick up something at the grocery store on the way home.
Right.
That's kind of typical forgetfulness. And then scrambling facts. This is another thing we can do. We can remember an event, but we might not remember it right. Okay, we might have thought we went with Chucky when we went with Billy, okay? Or we may have so ingrained even a football game or an experience that we think we were there, okay? So I think within reason, these are all things that people do, and so it's really nothing really to get that hung up on. But if you notice that it's becoming much more severe, or you're starting to have problems, you can't remember when you leave, how to get back, or you're forgetting people that you really see more regularly, then it becomes an issue. But for most people, these are just the common things that happen in life, and they can happen to you even when you're 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever it might be. I always kid people that one of the things about getting older, you have so many more things to remember. So if you're 20, you don't have that much to remember, but if you're 80 or 70, whatever it is.
That's a great point. That is a great... And why is it that some of us, like when I talk with my mom, I can say, okay, I can be on the phone, I go, well, tell me what you had for dinner a little while ago, and she's like, what did I have? I said, it wasn't memorable. She's like, I can't remember, but it wasn't great. But whatever it wasn't great. Now, I could ask her, Doc, where were you on September 28th, 1952? And she would go, I was with my father at Kezar Stadium. We watched the Niners beat the Detroit Lions. And it was a sunny, sunny afternoon in San Francisco, and we had a great time. Why is it we compartmentalize memories like that? It just happens.
I think certain memories are really significant. Okay, like the day you get married, your birthday. If you met somebody on a particular day, the day John F. Kennedy died. I mean, I think there's things that we experience. 9/11. I mean, that type of thing during Pearl Harbor for people that experienced that were alive at that time. So there's certain things that are really important to remember, and there's some things that don't really seem that important to people, but they do remember them. I remember a headline when I was a paper deliverer way back during Biggie Munn's day, and I remember there was a headline in the Grand Rapids Herald, and it said, Biggie's legions dominate, okay? This was a headline, okay? Biggie Munn winning a football game. And somehow I remember that, okay? It's all the things you remember, that's just one of those. And I will find, and you will too, there are just certain things that for whatever the reason we remember, and some of them aren't that significant. I remember my first event as a person, sitting and eating something with my mother, okay? As a little kid in the high church. They're just memories that we have. Some are significant, some might not seem significant. But that's the memory bank is just one of those kind of fascinating kinds of things. The problem I find right now, there's so many people that are fearful, particularly as they're getting older, of losing control. Can they drive? Are they going to forget where they were? And all these things, they put a lot of pressure and tension, on themselves rather than just kind of accepting this is part of the road of life, and we just. Do
you have one tip though for improving when you are with clients for helping people improve their short-term memory, which is again, like you mentioned, where did I put my glasses? Where are my keys? Oh shoot. Do you give one tip for them to say, take a breath, be calm, this too shall pass, but it happens. What do you say to them?
I do advise people to write things down, okay, in terms of what they're going to do in a day.
Okay.
And I advise people to take a look at what prescription drugs they're taking. Are they getting enough sleep? Are they particularly anxious or depressed? Are they worrying a lot? Do they drink too much alcohol? Do they substance abuse? Persons with ADHD can have real problems with focus and attention. I kind of ask them to do an etiology, do a review of their life and sort out what's going on. Because over the years, I've worked with a lot of anxious or worried people, and they're thinking on top of everything else that they're losing their memory. Okay, they can't remember, can't keep track. And I suggest they take a time out. Okay, first, I prioritize their day. What are they going to do? What's the plan? Write these things down, what you can do, and then take a look at how can you get rid of some of the clutter in your life and just really move forward and enjoy your life and not be worrying. And also, a lot of people will worry that they can't remember something. And I make the point, well, if it's really not important, I wouldn't be worrying about if you could remember it or not. I think if I'm talking to somebody or meet with somebody, you can tell if they're really having some issues. Like, it's just taking an aging person or a person who's having signs of memory loss. You can see it. I mean, if they leave the stove on, they leave the refrigerator open, they leave the front door open, they're not dressing well, they're not good hygiene, they're not paying their bills consistently. This becomes a pattern of real problems. Okay, but that's really not what we're talking about today. We're talking more about just the run-of-the-mill things that people have. But if you do a review of your life and say, what's going on? Because if a person's under tremendous pressure, they're not going to remember things. So if they're really depressed, if people are depressed, they got like 1,000 pounds.
You wouldn't believe the joke that so-and-so told me today. Who is so-and-so? Do you remember the joke? Yeah, I remember the joke, but who? Gosh, yeah, we have. Look, everybody has a moment like that. But those are the things that we've got to realize that they'll pass, and it's really not anything to. I mean, they're the kind of normal things that come up. Our good friend Dr. John Braccio, drjohnb.com for this podcast and more. It's not there yet, but it will be. It will be soon. Regional Psychological Services, East Lansing. Take care, stay safe, Doc, stay warm, all right?
Well, I'm in Miami, so it's pretty warm.
Oh, my. Yeah, here's the Chamber of Commerce weather has been rolled out in South Florida. Very good. We'll talk to you again next week. Take care, stay safe.
Okay, my friend, we'll talk to you. Bye-bye.
Back in a moment on 1320 WILS.